microprocessors are everywhere today. For example, they're in stuff like our computer, our phones, our remotes, and even more like scoreboards and calculators. So the reason why I'm credible about this is because my parents have been in the tech field for a very long time, and I've honestly aspired to be like them in that tech field. So what I like to learn is about how CPUs work and why they work. So today I'm going to be talking to you about the history of the microprocessor. So what exactly is a microprocessor? Well, according to Brian Marshall in April 1st, 2000, the year 2000, from the website How Stuff Works, it is a chip that's able to have an input device to make it work so they can process each information that is inside it. And how it works is that there's an input device where it's able to be input the information into the microprocessor, and the memory unit, which is usually known as RAM, is how fast the microprocessor is able to understand and process the information into the output information. For example, a CPU and a RAM. CPU stands for Central Processing Unit in a computer, and RAM stands for Random Access Memory. So tiny little bits of data are stored into the RAM, and how fast that RAM is able to process what's in the CPU is how fast the CPU is able to process any information and output it into the device. So I would like to introduce you to two main companies that produce these kinds of microprocessors. So the two companies is AMD and Intel. So Intel and AMD. So according to Michael Sexton, April 21st, 2017, from Tom's Hardware, a man named Robert Noyce broke off from another company and wanted to start his own company, and he founded it and called it Intel. For years, Intel has been the main CPU manufacturers all over the world. Their main startups throughout the ages started up with Intel Celeron, Intel Pentium, Intel Xenon, and Intel Core, which is the most recent one. The first processor they ever made was Random Access Memory, which I talked about earlier. And according to Kishan Paris in July 18, 2019, AMD was founded in May 1st, 1969 by a man named Walter Varnish. He bought a smaller company that already manufactured tiny microprocessors and built that up into a major company. So Intel's plan about the future, they started off with the Xenon recently, and now in the future they want to get smaller nanometers because microprocessors have a die, and whatever it's on the die, how big it is how big it takes up on the motherboard and how much information can be stored from there. And computers want to make it smaller and smaller and smaller so that they can fit more die in so that it's able to process more information. So in the future, Intel wants to be able to make 7 nanometer or 10 nanometer die. And according to the 7th Queen in May 16, 2018, in the Scepter magazine, that's what Intel wants to do. And same thing for AMD. AMD right now is they've already done the 14 nanometer and the 7 nanometer in the shipping part. And so now they want to do 7 nanometer plus, which is Zen 3, which is coming out very soon. But in design, which is in the way future right now, it is Zen 4, which is probably going to be around 5 nanometers. But that's going to be really crazy. So one thing about computers is very interesting about how CPUs and microprocessors have been here throughout all of the modern history for technology. And what are microprocessors? We know what microprocessors do, who makes them, where they came from, and what they might look like in the future. So one thing to leave before I leave is a funny story. So I was working on my computer, right? I was unscrewing a lot of the components on my laptop, and then there's a thermal conductivity pad that's able to absorb a lot of the heat from when it's used. Well, I forgot to put that away. I forgot to put that back in, and so when I booted it up, it was ready to start. All of a sudden, I started to smell smoking. I ran into my room, I saw my CPU was on fire. So I ran back down to the basement, grabbed my fire extinguisher and I put it out, but now I have no laptop, so whatever. But